It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. We just examined why the food on your plate costs more. President Trump's tariffs, labor shortages, trucking, corporate margins. And all of that hits Detroit harder than most places. 2 out of 3 households here deal with food insecurity. And Congress just gutted the federal safety net that millions of families depend on. Here's the thing. Whether prices go up because of a tariff or a drought or a trucker shortage, if you don't control any part of the system, you just absorb the hit. You're at the end of a chain somebody else built. And no food pantry, no matter how well run, changes that. My next guest says the answer isn't more charity. It's infrastructure, commercial kitchens, cold storage, distribution, ownership. A system where Detroiters grow food, process it, sell it, and keep the money. Natasha Tallman is trying to help build that system. She's program director of the North End Christian Community Development Corporation. Her organization runs the Oakland Avenue Urban Farm. It's a 10-acre campus in Detroit's North End. Natasha, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
So we just talked to a produce wholesaler about why grocery prices keep going up. Mm-hmm. He described a chain where costs pile up at every step. We're talking field labor, trucking, storage, retail markup, and all of it gets passed to the person at the register. Mm-hmm. You're trying to build something different. First, though, what's wrong with the system we have? Who does it actually serve?
The system that we have right now actually serves big business. It serves capitalism, capitalistic thoughts and ideologies. It's not necessarily designed for the common person, right?
So the supply chain is more of a power structure, not just a pricing mechanism.
Right. I would agree with that.
So you use a specific phrase, food sovereignty, not food security. A lot of people haven't heard that term, food sovereignty. Mm-hmm. What's the difference, and why do you think the distinction matters right now?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So food sovereignty is different in the sense that it means communities control how food is grown, processed, distributed, and reinvested locally. It's a power shift. And I'm sorry, what was the rest of your question?
Why is that power shift so important right now? And again, I want to emphasize what you're saying here, because outside of some circles, it's going to sound really foreign. Revolutionary, certainly. Food sovereignty means control.
Right.
Charity doesn't change who controls the system. Food sovereignty does, is what you're saying.
Right. Yes. So, ultimately, I don't want to come off as if charity is not important.
Sure.
Charity certainly is important, but charity is more about a short-term solution. It's like food pantries and things of that nature. When you start to think about food sovereignty, that is putting the power back into the hands of the community. That's creating spaces and infrastructure for local growers to be able to grow their food at scale, right? We need things such as what you mentioned, cold storage spaces, commercial kitchens. It means putting the power back in the hands of the community. It also gives people in community the power to choose the types of food that are being grown, how they're being grown, and recirculating those dollars back within the community itself, right? We want to see Detroiters, well, first of all, there are over, I want to say, at least the last the last statistic that I saw, there are over 900 community gardens in the city of Detroit, over 900 community gardens in the city of Detroit. So we're growing food, and unfortunately, a lot of times that food is not, or the money is not staying within the community. And so what we want to see is that money stay into the community. We want to see dollars go into infrastructure, build an infrastructure within community so that we can own have food sovereignty and own power. It's ultimately about community power.
And you get to that community power by closing this gap then between the local growers and the people who need that food.
Exactly.
And you're working on something that's going to help to do that. Before we talk a little bit more about the specifics of that, I do want to think about a moment that really reflected the fragility of our system. Last fall, the federal government shut down and SNAP payments stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And in Michigan, 1.4 million people depend on that program. United Way for Southeastern Michigan said food bank demand jumped more than 40%. We know Detroit's mayor had to put up $1.75 million in emergency funds just to keep pantry shelves stocked. I'm wondering, for you as an advocate, for you working in this space, what did that moment reveal about this system that we've been relying on?
Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately for us, that would be, and there are many people who are part of this food sovereignty movement. But for us, ultimately, it pointed out, one, that the system is broke, but it created a sense of panic. It created a sense of fear, ultimately. And then for those who are resilient in and of themselves, we remembered over for years now, we have always collectively as a community been able to support ourselves. And so we remembered that and all sat around and thought of how can we change the system? How can we become a part of the solution? And a part of that solution for us at North End Christian CDC was to create a food resiliency hub network. We are currently renovating a 10,000 square foot building that will feature a commercial kitchen, food distribution spaces, as well as training spaces. And we're not just working in isolation. We're not siloed. We are partnering with other farmers on the west side of Detroit and the east side of Detroit so that we can all collaborate and share resources and build infrastructure.
Okay, so this food resilience hub network is not a single farm. It's a network that's connecting growers across the city to this shared infrastructure that you're talking about. And some of the goals include rescuing and redistributing 1 million plus pounds of food annually, serving over 2,500 residents a year, launching food businesses that are led by Black owners, by people of color owners, and creating dozens of jobs.
Yes, that is the overall vision. And the truth is we've already been doing the work. We just don't have the support. We've not had the support. Fortunately, right now, I do want to lift up the McGregor Fund. They are highly invested in making sure that this food sovereignty work does come to scale in the city of Detroit.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Natasha Tallman, Program Director of the North End Christian Community Development Corporation. It runs the Oakland Avenue Urban Farm in Detroit's North End. And we're talking about what it takes to move Detroit from food charity to food sovereignty and why that matters right now. So, Natasha, you've talked about things like cold storage and commercial kitchens, a distribution fleet. That does sound like a business, not a charity. For people who don't think about food infrastructure, why does it matter whether a neighborhood has a walk-in cooler or a licensed kitchen? I mean, what happens in a place like Detroit's North End without those things?
Well, ultimately, the reason why it's important to have a commercial kitchen is because we have Detroit. Detroit is so full of talent. We have chefs, we have growers, we have cooks, artisans, and unfortunately, individually, we don't always have the income and the support to grow that business to mass so that we can effectively affect our communities. And so what happens when you bring a commercial kitchen to somewhere like the North End, you create opportunities for food entrepreneurs to be able to scale their work. You create spaces where recipes are no longer in a folder in your home, but those recipes can get turned into a food business that is now affecting and feeding community, culturally appropriate food, by the way. It creates opportunity. It creates opportunity. And again, it creates local income that remains in a community and gets circulated back in a community.
I want to end on that notion of creating opportunity and creating power for folks. Mm-hmm. Your organization, the North End Christian Community Development Corporation, helped create a co-op academy in the North End, and it taught residents how to launch businesses that they own collectively, where every worker has an equal share and an equal vote in how the business runs. That is what a co-op is, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. 3 came out of that program, all Black owned, all on Oakland Avenue corridor. You lead one of them. There's a cafe/catering business, a beauty supply store, and a garden center. How does that model, actual ownership, not just a job, change the equation?
Well, the most important thing is that ownership creates the opportunity for legacy wealth. Many of those who decided to be a part of the Cooperative Academy, they were obviously I don't want to say words like obviously. These were people who had jobs and were employed working for others, but yet they were watching their wealth go out the door. And so the idea of creating a cooperative business is one, to create legacy wealth for them and their families, to bring business and legacy and economic wealth to communities, and also the aspect of doing it cooperatively kind of eliminates it eliminates the fact that most individuals, especially Black and brown people in the city of Detroit, don't necessarily have the capital to start a business, aren't necessarily in a position to go out and get the loans necessary to start businesses. And so when you pool your money together and you're doing this business from a democratic process, you are actually creating power and wealth that way as well, through collective collaboration.
Natasha Tallman, Program Director of the North End Christian Community Development Corporation, which runs the Oakland Avenue Urban Farm in Detroit's North End. Natasha, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, a new model that's growing in popularity to solve the problem of hunger in America. We'll be back with that next here on the Metro. Stay with us.